Hi, I'm the Plant Gals, and today I wanted to talk about some things that I wish I'd known before getting a tortoise, specifically a redfoot tortoise. Tiki is my baby, specifically a black cherry head redfoot tortoise, which means he has a little bit extra black. Cherry head tortoises aren't a morph, they're a locality, kind of the same when I talk about my lychee gecko, where the different lychee geckos come from different islands, or the different redfoot tortoises come from different areas of South America. So cherry head tortoises are called that because they have much more red on their heads than other redfoot tortoises, as I can show you here. And these ones come from Brazil mostly. So that's what I have. I have a cherry head redfoot tortoise, and then the black is just like, it's not necessarily a morph, it's just that they have more black. I want to do more research and understanding if Tiki is axanthic or not, but I also just don't care. He's just pretty, a pretty tortoise. I got Tiki when Tiki was about a month and a half to 2 months old, so just a little baby. I was not prepared for some things. So the first thing I do when I'm researching an animal is Google, YouTube, those sorts of things, see what kinds of resources I can find. And one of the most important videos I think I've ever made was my video on why you shouldn't get a hedgehog, because there's so much misinformation. I see so many people rehoming hedgehogs because they're like, I'm allergic. Haha, how would you know that you're allergic to a hedgehog until you get one? It's not like you see them every day, because they have irritants that they spit onto their quills, and when their quills poke your hand, everybody has that reaction. I feel like there are some things with tortoises and the care guides that talk about getting a tortoise and what it's like that could be explained better as somebody who's owned one. Or not even explained better, just I feel like the care guides are like, this is how you take care of it. But the actual day-to-day care of a tortoise is very, very different than my other animals. The first thing is that Tiki's a baby. Tortoises are like grazing animals. They just kind of roam around and eat whatever they want. This is different for each species. You know, there's like savanna tortoises and European tortoises and South American tortoises like my tortoise. But the idea is that they're kind of like a deer or like a cow, and they kind of just roam around and they eat what's on the ground. All Tiki does is eat. So every single day I feed Tiki, and you will be amazed by how much these little tortoises eat. When you want a tortoise that's this big, it eats a lot for its size. It doesn't eat enough to kind of get through like a lot of fresh produce. And everything I feed Tiki, aside from the pellets, I give him the Missouri tortoise pellets. Other than that, it's all fresh produce. Almost none of it is frozen. It's really important to me that Tiki gets a varied diet. A varied diet is important in tortoises because, you know, some people have issues with them only picking out their favorite foods, not eating their greens, not getting the correct micronutrients. And maybe it's the fact that I have a degree in nutrition and food science, that feeding my animals the correct nutrition is as important as feeding me and other people the correct nutrition. Tiki does not pick out his favorites because it gets circulated. So he's constantly experiencing different flavors, different combinations of food. He gets a base of either red lettuce, arugula, Swiss chard, kind of like just your leafy greens, 1 or 2 fruits, strawberries, blueberries, mango, papaya, those sorts of things. And then on top of that, South American tortoises eat more protein than other tortoises. That's why it's really important to give them the Missouri diet. The actual logistics of feeding a tortoise is very, very different than any other animal. I have to keep the variety up every single day. Having variety for something that you're feeding every single day is very difficult. I don't think that people talk about that. And for me, I believe it to be very important. A lot of people online believe it to be very important. But you have to have quite a bit of produce in your fridge, and your tortoise is pretty little, when it's a baby at least. When Tiki is older, it'll be a lot. And it'll be better because then I don't have to worry about so much produce going bad in my fridge. And obviously, he'll eat it faster. But the problem with that is then obviously I'm spending a lot more money. So you win some, you lose some. It's definitely like a little bit of a logistical nightmare for something so small because, like I said, they're just not going through it fast enough. So you don't want to have waste. And right, like you read about it, you read about the different things you should be feeding your tortoise, like in the different amounts and stuff. But the actual, like I said, the logistics of it on a day-to-day basis, getting up and doing it is a little bit more complicated than it seems online. One of my favorite things is feeding my animals. I love it. I love that I've been able to add this into my daily routine of getting up and feeding Tiki. And I like the creativity of it, of like thinking how I can like get the ratios right, but you know, like switch things out, see if there's like some fruit on sale at the grocery store that I can get, or like different things. It's really fun. But it's It's different. And then what's really important is tortoises are on very specific schedules. I knew that they were kind of a stubborn little animal. I grew up with like the world's most stubborn wiener dog, so I kind of was like, oh, you know, I can handle this. But what I wasn't necessarily prepared for is how specific Tiki's schedule is. So Tiki wakes up at about the same time every single day, right about 9 a.m. And Tiki goes to bed like fully for the day, won't come out again at about 8 p.m. But Tiki wants to eat at about 10 usually. And it's the same deal every day. Tiki gets up, Tiki goes over to his water dish, has a little drink, maybe has a little soak, walks over to his food bowl, and then he'll just eat in the food bowl and switch between the food bowl and his little basking spot all day. Maybe go for a nap in his little hide. And even in his little hide, he has like a little tortoise hide. In there, he has this little corner that he's dug out, and he sleeps in that exact spot every single night. Is very meticulous, and I can tell that it is stressful for him. The few times that I've, been lazy, slept in, wake up a little bit later and feed him, he doesn't like it. I have to get up and make sure that I'm feeding him on time every single day because that's really important for him. And I know that this might be the same for like a dog or something. Be up at 6 a.m. every single day feeding him, but they don't really talk about that with tortoises. And I'm sure that you could maybe modify the schedule so they fit into your schedule, but Tiki's still a baby, so I'm just kind of like seeing where Tiki leads me. And yeah, that their little schedules are really neat, but you have to follow them. That leads into, once again, with eating. I was handling Tiki. I put Tiki back in his little house, and he pooped in front of me. And I've never really seen him poop in front of me before, but what I had noticed is that I don't find a lot of poop in Tiki's enclosure. So I have isopods in there, so I just assumed that the isopods were eating all of it. But sometimes like he'd poop on this one rock and I'd see like the smears of poop, but I wouldn't see like the poop, which was kind of weird. I didn't know what that was. And then, and I kind of knew in my heart, I was like, yeah, that would be weird for the isopods to go like out onto the basking rock to eat it, even at night. It's just like, I keep a lot of isopods and it's kind of weird behavior for them if they have a lot of food elsewhere. I was like kind of interested to see what happens because this is me watching Tiki poop for the first time. So Tiki poops, and then I was just doing some other chores, cleaning up some of my other reptile enclosures, and I can hear the sound of him eating. And I look over and I don't see him in his food bowl, so I was like, oh, did he like pull something out of his food bowl and he's like eating it in another part of his enclosure, which really isn't like him. Typically he's just literally in the middle of the food bowl, just like whole body in the middle, just gorging himself. And he was eating his poop. So then I freaked out because I know a few things about coprophagia. So coprophagia is just the special scientific word for poop eating and poop eating behavior. Sometimes animals eat their poop because they're missing nutrients in their diet. So then I'm like, crap, I thought I had this whole diet thing down. Do I have this, not have this diet thing down? Is this bad? Is this gross? What do I do? So I was like, oh, this is gross. Do a bunch of research. It's actually very, very common for red-foot tortoises. It doesn't indicate a nutritional deficiency. It's just a behavior that they have. Apparently, especially as babies, they're much more prone to it. So nowhere until I looked this up did I see information about the fact that they eat their poop. Nowhere. I have done so much research and I watched so many videos and read so many articles. It comes up when you look it up that they eat their poop, but I didn't think beforehand to be like, do they eat their poop? They do. Not a big deal, apparently. How fast do tortoises grow? Because what I've read is that they maybe get full grown around 8 years old, maybe. But between 1 and 8, is it getting like almost full grown by 2? Like I didn't know the ratio. But Tiki has grown a lot, and it's been about a month. Tiki used to sit like right in the middle of my palm when I got him, and now he takes up about my whole palm. I can show before and afters of Tiki. So Tiki is growing pretty fast, which is exciting. This happened with Dolce, and I said this early on in having Dolce. Oh my gosh, I love Dolce. I can't wait for Dolce to be big. Dolce is my Leachianus gecko. And then when Dolce gets, and I literally was like, and then I know that when Dolce gets big, I'll miss when Dolce was little. And now Dolce is big, and I miss when Dolce was little. But when Dolce was little, I was like, I wish Dolce would get big. So, it's like one of those things where like, I'm excited for Tiki to get big, and then Tiki will get big, and I'll be like, oh, I miss when Tiki was a baby. I want like is it like an exponential graph? Is it like linear? I'd love to know how fast tortoises grow. You know, I'm gonna go from a tortoise that weighs, I don't know, I doubt Tiki even weighs a pound right now, to 15 pounds or more on the tortoise. There are some very, very big redfoot tortoises. Cherry heads are typically smaller, but I would say that Tiki may get to around 15 pounds. So that's very different. Tiki, I feel like he'll be more consistent, but I don't know. So yeah, I don't really know when I have to expect like an upgrade or anything. It'll be easy to upgrade Tiki, and I have planned. Now I'm working on my upgrade for Dulce, my lychee gecko, a 3x3x2. Either the next video or the one after that will be on the build for that. It's coming along really nicely, so it's in the background. I'm just looking at it. The Aeroid show is this weekend. I don't live in Edmonton anymore, but you know I'm going up for it. So I guess I was asked if I travel for like expos and shows and stuff. I haven't yet, but this will be my first time traveling. But it's weird because it's one that I've been to a bunch of times before. But you know it's good if it's one that I'm like actually traveling to go back to. But there are a few, like the reptile expos in Edmonton, and there's even a kind of reptile expo in Red Deer. So there's a few that I could definitely travel for. I mean, I think it's this weekend is the Canadian Reptile Breeders Expo, which happens in Ontario. That is a big one. I'd have to fly for that. Maybe one day, if I have a big enough following, I could maybe justify flying out to that. It'd be really, really neat. But yeah, I don't know. It's really, I'm very excited to do another Aeroid show video because they're so fun, and I will be working the event. That is my quick little ranty video on some of the things that I was not prepared for when getting a tortoise. Let me know what you think, if you have heard of these things before, if maybe I just missed out on this information. I know it's very specific, but I think the specifics of animal care are important. Oh my gosh, if you have a tortoise, please comment below. And oh, follow me on my Instagram. I love posting over there. I talk about all sorts of stuff, including my crochet, which I don't really talk about on here. But if you're interested in crochet, you can follow me on my Instagram. I just recently did a market for my crochet, and it went really well. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!